my sister warned. Don't come to my wedding, your husband's sports tattoos and our family won't stand for that. Mom replied icily. And don't bring that deaf child. If he's disabled, keep it under wraps for life. I fought back tears on the wedding day as her trembling voice pleaded over the phone. Please, please come now. In a colonial-style home nestled in a quiet suburban Boston neighborhood, Melissa Johnson stood at the window watching a gentle rain that marked winter's end. Mom, look. Michael signed excitedly with grand hand gestures. Freshly 7, with his brown hair and big, expressive eyes, his animated signing made one forget about his hearing loss. What is it? Melissa signed back, glancing at the paper spread out before her. Michael had drawn a picture of a fire truck and a heroic man. It's a picture of Dad, he signed proudly. That's wonderful, it really looks like him. Melissa replied with a smile, gently caressing her son's hair. Jason emerged from the kitchen. His skin tanned to a healthy glow, hair closely cropped, and a body honed by physical work as a firefighter. His left arm to his shoulder was marked by a vibrant tattoo of flowers and flames intertwined with the words honor and service. And his back carried the names of saved comrades. What are you staring at? Jason asked as he stepped forward, placing his arm around his wife. It's a portrait of you, Melissa chuckled, showing him Michael's drawing of their local hero. Jason smiled bashfully and lifted Michael into his arms, signing at the same time in a seamless blend of spoken words and sign language that resonated naturally in their home. Returning to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, Melissa glanced at the family photos hung on the walls. Snapshots of their wedding day, Michael's birth, and last summer's trip to Maine's coast, each image radiating their smiles. When Michael was born and his hearing impairment was discovered, the couple was momentarily lost. But not for long. This child doesn't need special accommodations. He needs love, Jason had insisted, and together they learned sign language. Jason even began volunteering weekly to teach sign language at Michael's school. At the breakfast table, while sorting through mail that mixed bills with advertisements, Melissa discovered a letter from Barbara. It's from Mom, she sighed as she opened the envelope. Obsessed with maintaining her status in Boston's high society, Barbara had objected sharply when Melissa decided to marry Jason, an ordinary public school teacher with tattoos, as if he were a criminal. And when Michael's disability became known, she spoke as though it were a blemish on the family lineage. The letter also shared news of her sister Caitlin, who had grown up under their mother's strict expectations to be perfect and conform to high society standards. Unlike Melissa, Caitlin had dedicated herself to earning her mother's approval, and had just reached the final selection for Boston University's elite law program. She truly is the pride of our family, the letter boasted. Melissa set the letter aside. Since their father's death a decade ago, she had felt increasingly estranged from the family. Her marriage to a tattooed firefighter, raising a child with a disability, and embracing an ordinary life in suburban Boston didn't meet what Barbara considered the Griffith family standards. Is something wrong? Jason asked with genuine concern. Just the usual update from Mom, Melissa answered with a wry smile, proud of Caitlin's achievement. I'd like to meet her, Jason said. After all, she's Michael's only aunt. Melissa hesitated, remembering their last brief and chilly encounter 2 years ago, when Caitlin had awkwardly struggled to connect with Michael and grimaced at Jason's tattoos. Later, from the kitchen window, as the morning sun filtered through, Melissa watched Jason and Michael signing to each other while pointing at birds in the garden. A feeling of belonging warmed her heart, despite her family's inability to understand the love that filled their home. Suddenly, the phone rang. Melissa picked it up, and it was her sister's voice, unusually excited. I have big news, Caitlin. What is it? Melissa inquired. I'm engaged to David Foster. He's one of Boston's most promising young lawyers. I've already told Mom, and she's thrilled. For a moment, Melissa was speechless. Congratulations, Kate. That's wonderful. The wedding is set for May at the Boston Harbor Hotel. And of course, you and your family are invited. After hanging up, Melissa gazed out the window, sincerely wishing her sister happiness, though an unease lingered inside. Later that evening, Melissa shared the news with Jason and Michael. Michael's eyes lit up and he signed excitedly. I want a new suit, Jason quipped. Looks like I'll need a proper tie then. Melissa smiled, secretly hoping that this celebration could mend the long-standing rift with her family. 2 weeks later, the wedding invitation arrived adorned in a beautiful gold trim. Melissa carefully traced the embossed letters. Please attend the wedding of Caitlin Griffith and David Foster. It's a gorgeous invitation, she said, showing it to Michael, who was immersed in a picture book in the living room. It's Auntie's wedding. We're all going together. Brimming with excitement, Michael stood and signed. Will I wear a tie? Melissa nodded warmly, replying, Yes, and we'll go buy you a new suit tomorrow. His pure joy bolstered her hope that this day might finally bridge the family divide. That evening, Caitlin called. Her voice, tight with tension, said, "Melissa, I need to speak with you. Can we meet for lunch tomorrow at Café Matra in Boston?" The next day, Melissa arrived at the upscale cafe in Boston's Back Bay. Its interior elegant as ever. Caitlin was already waiting at a window table, clad in a perfect blouse, a pearl necklace, and flawlessly styled blonde hair. "It's been a while," Melissa greeted her with a light embrace, though she wished she could hug her sister tighter, knowing Caitlin wasn't comfortable with closeness. "Sit down," Caitlin urged, a hint of unease in her eyes. "I need to talk to you about David." After the waiter served their coffee, Caitlin got to the point. David's family is extremely traditional. His father is the president of the Boston Bar Association, and his mother a trustee with the Arts Association. Melissa nodded. "That's impressive." Caitlin continued cautiously. "The wedding will be very formal and elegant. Many of David's influential family friends and legal figures will be there." Melissa tilted her head in confusion, not grasping Caitlin's underlying meaning. "And that's the issue," Caitlin said, staring into her coffee. "We must be perceived as a proper family. That means impressions matter. Jason's tattoos can't be on display to David's family, and Michael's sign language would disrupt the ceremonial atmosphere." Melissa could hardly believe what she was hearing. What are you saying? Don't you understand?" Caitlin adjusted her tone. "I love you all, but my wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Everything must be perfect." Melissa's cheeks flushed with hurt. "Are you implying that my family isn't acceptable?" she managed. "That's not what Caitlin's face hardened. "This isn't about you. It's about my day. I need you to get it." Heartbroken and lost for words, Melissa left the cafe with a painful ache in her heart. On her way home, Melissa called her mother to explain, but Barbara's reaction was as expected. "Caitlin is right. Jason's look is an issue and children with disabilities should never draw attention at an event like this." In a trembling voice, Melissa responded, "You always want things your way, but this time consider Caitlin. You know how important this wedding is to her." Melissa returned home fighting back tears, where Jason and Michael greeted her with worried eyes. "What happened?" Jason asked gently. Melissa tried to explain, but her words faltered. Suddenly, the phone rang again. It was Barbara. With a weary expression, Melissa put the phone on speaker. "Have you reconsidered?" Barbara demanded. "Reconsidered? What do you mean?" Melissa stammered. "I'll explain you to David's family, if you agree to some conditions." Barbara's tone turned icy. "Please don't come to the wedding." Melissa gasped. Jason grasped her hand. "Your husband has tattoos, right?" Barbara continued flatly. "And don't bring that deaf child. If he's disabled, keep it hidden forever." Melissa ended the call with trembling hands, desperately holding back tears. A heavy silence settled in the room as Michael looked on anxiously. "What's wrong?" he signed. Jason pulled Melissa close and signed to Michael. "It's okay, Mom's just a little sad." That night, after tucking Michael into bed, Melissa and Jason shared a heartfelt conversation in their living room. "You don't have to attend," Jason said softly. "Thank you for showing us what true family means to Michael and me. You are the most important person in my life." In Jason's embrace, Melissa wept, grateful that she had chosen a man with tattoos, a firefighter who loved Michael unconditionally. The next morning, Melissa sent a brief message to Caitlin. "Kate, I won't be able to attend your wedding. I ask that you respect our family as we are. I truly wish you happiness." After sending the message, Melissa stood by the window, watching the world bathed in soft spring sunlight streaming through the curtains. In the quiet light, the depth of her wounded heart echoed the pain of rejection yet held onto a fragile hope for a future where love could bridge even the widest divides. With her heart full of reflections on the real meaning of family, Melissa prepared for a new day. The wedding day had finally arrived beneath a brilliant May sun. Since early morning, she had been busy in the kitchen, getting ready for a picnic. Michael was eagerly helping, signing happily as he carefully arranged the sandwiches on a plate. "This one's for Dad, this one's for Mom, and this one's for me." The sandwiches, lovingly made for their little family of 3, were cut into various fun shapes. From the living room, Jason called out as he gathered blankets and a frisbee. "The weather's perfect. A great day for a picnic at Blue Hills." Melissa smiled, though quietly, her mind still shadowed by thoughts of her sister's wedding. By now, Caitlin would be dressed in her dream gown, living the most important day of her life. Determined to set aside her mixed feelings, she told herself, "Let's enjoy today." Just then, Melissa's cell phone rang. Seeing Caitlin's name flash on the screen, she hesitated. But then she thought maybe it's important. "Kate," she answered. Instead of the usual light conversation, all she heard on the other end was soft crying. Caitlin's voice trembled. Please, please come right away. A chill ran down Melissa's spine. What's wrong? What happened with David's speech? Caitlin's words trailed off. Everything. I was wrong. Kate, please calm down. What happened? Melissa tried to keep her composure. There's no time to explain. Boston Harbor Hotel, Grand Ballroom now. Before Melissa could ask more, the call ended. Looking at Jason with a confused expression, she whispered. That was Caitlin. Something terrible happened. What should we do? Jason's tone was serious. I think we need to go. Melissa took a deep breath. I wonder if we should head over, considering what's happening. Jason replied immediately. Your sister's in trouble, right? Sensing the urgency, Michael signed. Let's go. Quickly, the three of them changed and piled into the car. Melissa, short on time, chose a simple dress with a cardigan, while Jason wore a long-sleeved shirt to cover his tattoos, and Michael kept his button-down shirt with chino pants from the morning. During the drive, Melissa's thoughts raced. What could possibly have gone wrong with David's speech? The Boston Harbor Hotel, one of the city's most prestigious venues, loomed ahead with its grand entrance, sparkling chandeliers and marble floors. They hurried into the grand ballroom, where Caitlin stood in the lobby in her wedding dress. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes red from crying, and as soon as she saw them, she rushed over. You came, she sobbed, then unexpectedly knelt in front of Michael. Clumsily, she signed. I'm sorry, what happened? Come on in, Melissa urged, and Caitlin led them into the venue. Inside the grand ballroom, hundreds of guests were seated in silence. The ceremony seemed paused. On a raised platform at the front, the groom, David Foster, stood in a crisp tuxedo. Tall and refined, the very picture of Boston elite. David's face relaxed with relief when he saw them. There was a gentle murmur in the room. Barbara, seated in the front row, turned and stared at Melissa in shock. David cleared his throat and took the microphone. Excuse me, let me continue. I was just discussing what a true family means. His voice echoed through the hall. The woman I'm about to marry, Caitlin Griffith, has a sister, Melissa Johnson, her husband, Jason, and their son, Michael. For a moment, Melissa could only stand silent as David smiled and went on. I learned just before the ceremony that you weren't going to be here, and when I discovered why, I was deeply saddened. A heavy silence fell. I was told that Jason's tattoos and Michael's hearing impairment were the reasons. Then, taking a measured breath, he confessed. But here's something you should know. I have a brother, Thomas, who is also hearing impaired. A gasp could be heard from Barbara, and Melissa's eyes widened in surprise. As a lawyer and as a human being, I have always fought against discrimination, David continued. Supporting the hearing impaired is one of my life's missions. My brother is one of the most important people in my life, and his disability is nothing to hide or be ashamed of. Lowering the microphone slightly, David fluently signed. A true family means accepting and supporting one another. At that, Michael's face lit up at the sight of sign language. And about those tattoos, David added. My father, Edward Foster, served in the Marine Corps when he was young. Many of his comrades proudly wear tattoos. Judging someone by their appearance is something we should avoid at all costs. Barbara's face reddened as David continued. Family is about understanding and acceptance, not exclusion. I deeply regret that these values were overlooked in today's preparations. Turning to Caitlin, he said, I am truly grateful for you, Melissa, Jason, and Michael for being here today. You embody the family I cherish. Applause erupted as many guests stood in support. Overwhelmed, Melissa's tears flowed freely. Caitlin rushed toward her, wrapping her arms around her sister, apologizing repeatedly. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, she cried. Through her tears, she explained. Last night, I told David everything. He was angry and said, if we can't invite the real family, then this wedding is meaningless. Before Melissa could question, David resumed his speech. I began speaking about the true meaning of family, and I realized my actions were wrong. I felt ashamed, but I understood the truth, and that's why I called you. Melissa searched Caitlin's eyes and saw nothing but genuine regret and love, as if the distance between them was finally closing. David stepped down from the platform and approached them. Extending his hand to Jason, he said, It's an honor to meet you. Then turning to Michael, he signed fluently. Hello, I'm David. I'm glad to meet you. Michael cheerfully signed back. My name is Michael, congratulations. At that moment, Barbara approached hesitantly, her expression a mix of embarrassment and confusion. Melissa, she began, but Melissa, feeling vulnerable for the first time, interrupted gently. It's okay, Mom. I just want you to remember today. The ceremony resumed as Melissa's family was guided to the front row. They witnessed Caitlin and David exchange their heartfelt vows. David even brought in a sign language interpreter to express his promises, holding Caitlin's hand the entire time. In that moment, Melissa felt that, while old wounds wouldn't disappear overnight, today had taught everyone what family truly meant. When Michael reached for Melissa's hand with his small one, she smiled quietly. After the main ceremony, the reception began. Live music filled the hall, and champagne glasses sparkled under the lights. Surprisingly, Melissa's family was warmly welcomed by the guests. Michael's eyes gleamed with wonder as he looked around at the ornate cakes on the dessert table, while Melissa held her glass, quietly processing the events, from the unexpected phone call to David's moving speech and the long-awaited reconciliation with Caitlin. The whole experience felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. "It was a wonderful ceremony," Jason said softly beside her. Even though he wasn't dressed perfectly, his natural demeanor fit right in. He wore a long-sleeved shirt, with just a glimpse of his tattoo visible on his right wrist. "Yes, it really was," Melissa agreed with a small smile. Just then, a distinguished gentleman in his late 60s with an imposing presence approached them. It was Edward Foster, David's father. His posture spoke of years of leadership and authority. "We finally meet, Melissa," Edward said warmly. "I've heard from my son that you're a wonderful educator." Humbly, Melissa replied, "It's an honor." Edward then turned to Jason. "And you must be Jason. I understand you're a firefighter?" He extended his hand, and as they shook, his gaze lingered on the small portion of Jason's tattoo visible at his wrist. With an intrigued expression, Edward asked, "Is that?" Jason awkwardly pulled his sleeve down a bit, but Edward politely continued, "If you wouldn't mind, may I see it more clearly?" After a brief hesitation, Jason slowly rolled up his left sleeve. There, displayed proudly, was the entire tattoo. Intertwined flower and flame motifs with the words honor and service beneath. At the sight, Edward suddenly saluted. "That's a 3rd Marine Division tattoo," he said, his voice filled with respect. "You served honorably." As people nearby began to take notice, Jason explained quietly, "Yes, I participated in the Second Battle of Fallujah during the Iraq War." Edward's eyes lit up. "Which unit did you serve with?" Jason answered, "Charlie Company, sir." Edward continued excitedly, "Do you know my son, Michael Foster?" "He was also in Charlie Company." Jason was briefly at a loss for words. "Lieutenant Mike Foster was my commanding officer," he added. Edward couldn't contain his emotions as he recalled that Michael was wounded in Charlie Company and later returned home, always speaking of the brave soldier who risked his life to rescue him. Jason simply shrugged and said, "I just did what needed to be done." Overhearing their conversation, David approached and asked, "What's happening?" "Dad," Edward explained excitedly, "this young man is the hero who saved my brother on the battlefield." David then added, "I've heard that story from my brother many times. He never forgets that moment." At that point, Barbara and Caitlin approached, blushing as they listened. "Why wasn't this hero invited to the ceremony?" Barbara muttered. Edward's tone turned stern. "We should never judge someone solely by their tattoos. For us, a Marine Corps tattoo is a mark of honor." Caitlin bowed her head in agreement. In that moment, as conversations mingled with soft music and clinking glasses, the true meaning of family was revealed. A tapestry woven from love, acceptance, and respect, overcoming past prejudices and embracing every member's unique story. Her head hung in shame as she murmured, "I've done something terrible." Stunned by the revelation, Melissa glanced at her husband, Jason, and mouthed, "I'll explain later." Jason rarely spoke of his battlefield experiences because they carried heavy emotional weight. Noticing Michael, Edward asked gently, "This is your son, right?" and offered his hand with a warm smile. Though a bit uneasy about the gravity of the adult conversation, Michael accepted the handshake. "Actually, I'd like you to meet my other son, Thomas," Edward announced. He motioned toward a corner of the venue, where a young man in his mid-20s was standing, his gentle features reminiscent of David's. At Edward's cue, Thomas approached. "This is Thomas, David's brother and my youngest son," Edward said with pride. When Thomas caught sight of Michael, he signed, "Nice to meet you," and Michael's eyes lit up. Signing back enthusiastically, Michael replied, "Nice to meet you, I'm Michael." Edward explained, "Thomas has been deaf since birth. He's now studying architecture at Boston University. His disability in no way limits his potential. It's given him a unique perspective." Barbara stood silent, visibly shaken as her long-held beliefs were being challenged. David continued, "The support center for the hearing impaired, which we're planning to launch soon, will also work hand in hand with veterans like Jason. After all, the The PTSD some battle veterans experience shares a similarity with the social isolation the hearing impaired often face. Jason nodded, adding, I've even started disaster prevention programs for children with disabilities at the fire station because of Michael. As the conversation unfolded, Melissa marveled at the miraculous coincidence. Her husband, the hero who had once saved a life on the battlefield, was now uniting families in ways she never imagined. What was once seen as a source of shame had transformed into a badge of family pride. Quietly, Barbara wiped away her tears as she watched Michael and Thomas interact like doting grandchildren. Melissa took Jason's hand and whispered, You never told me this story. Jason smiled gently. The past is behind us. What matters is today. Around them, two families were blending together, forging new bonds. A year later, on a December night at Melissa's home, soft Christmas lights bathed the living room in a warm glow. A large, festively adorned fir tree stood proudly, surrounded by family. Jason was giving Michael a piggyback ride as they placed the star atop the tree, drawing cheers and applause from everyone gathered. It's beautiful, Barbara remarked as she settled into a chair. She signed to Michael with surprising fluency. Wonderful. For a year, she had diligently worked on her sign language, albeit clumsily, enjoying the chance to converse with her grandson. Gathered around the fireplace were David, Caitlin, Thomas, and Mr. and Mrs. Edward. Although Michael couldn't attend due to an overseas business trip, he had sent a heartfelt video message. The room buzzed with warm conversation and laughter. In the kitchen, Melissa and Caitlin prepared dinner together, a relationship that had transformed greatly over the past year. I still can't believe it, Caitlin said while slicing an apple pie. How arrogant I was a year ago, Melissa gently replied. The past doesn't matter as much as the present. Barbara entered the kitchen, her softened expression betraying the change in her heart. Is there anything I can do to help? She offered. Melissa smiled warmly. Thank you, Mom. Looking at her two daughters, Barbara admitted quietly, It's hard to admit past mistakes, but I am truly ashamed for judging people based on appearance or disability. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry I hurt you. Melissa stepped forward and embraced her mother. It's okay, we're family. Returning to the living room, David was busy teaching Michael and Thomas to use a new tablet loaded with the sign language learning app. The Support Center for Children with Hearing Impairments is opening next month, David reported to Melissa. Meanwhile, Caitlin mentioned that she had handled all the legal details, adding with a bashful shrug, So many children, especially gifted ones like Michael, will benefit. Outside by the window, Edward was deep in conversation with Jason. Your lecture at the Veterans Association was a great success. So many young people were inspired by your approach to PTSD, Edward praised. Jason smiled. Reuniting with Lieutenant Mike, whom I once helped, feels nothing short of miraculous. As the evening wound down, Barbara bent down to kiss Michael's cheek and promised, both in sign language and spoken words, Let's visit the museum together next week. Thomas signed to Michael, Enjoy Christmas, and the two exchanged a firm, heartfelt handshake. Later, as the family departed, Melissa remained in the living room, watching soft snowflakes begin to fall outside the window. Jason draped an arm around her shoulders, with Michael standing between them. Happy? Jason asked gently. Melissa took a deep breath, surveying the room full of laughter, warmth, and reconciliation. Very, she replied. Reflecting on the painful rejection she had experienced a year ago, she now felt a deep sense of peace. David's moving speech about the true essence of family, one that cherishes differences in appearance and ability, while offering unconditional acceptance and support, had touched everyone's heart. Michael looked up at his parents and signed, Love, family. As Melissa hugged her son, she quietly savored the truth that a genuine family is bound not just by blood, but by love and acceptance.